So you ever wonder why your pennies get dull when they're nice and shiny when you get them from the bank? Like these dull pennies. Well, pennies get dull over time because copper in pennies slowly reacts with air to form copper oxide. Pure copper metal is bright and shiny, like this, but the oxide is dull and greenish, kind of like these pennies. When you place pennies in the salt and vinegar solution, the copper oxide, the acetic acid from the vinegar dissolves the copper oxide, leaving behind shiny, clean pennies. The copper from the copper oxide stays in the liquid, and you could use other acids to do this instead of vinegar, like lemon juice.
The required starting materials to clean the pennies and plate the nails are pennies, pure copper bars, vinegar, salt, a clear plastic bowl, water, steel nails, and measuring spoons.
We have a half a cup of vinegar and we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. And then we're going to stir the salt and vinegar together so the salt can dissolve into the vinegar. See right there? It's dissolved.
The next step is to dip the copper into the vinegar solution, and as you can see, the oxidizing of the copper cleans it. Now this copper material is the same copper material used in these pennies, and these pennies are all very dirty and very dull right now. And as we dump them into the vinegar solution, they will be cleaned after a short period of time, after about 4 or 5 minutes.
A few moments later.
Okay, so now 5 minutes has passed. I'm taking half of the pennies out and I'm placing them on a towel to dry. And the other half I'm going to rinse with water. And then place these on a paper towel and allow them to dry as well.
So rinsing the pennies with water will drop your reaction between the salt and vinegar and the pennies. It will slowly turn dull again over time, which will not quickly enough for you to watch. But on the other hand, the salt and vinegar residue on the unrinsed pennies promotes a reaction between the copper and the oxygen in the air. The resulting blue-green copper oxide is commonly called vinaigrette. It is a type of patina found on a metal similar to tarnish on silver. The oxide forms in nature as well, producing minerals such as malachite and azurite.
1 hour later.
Okay, so these are the pennies that were taken out of the solution and rinsed with water to stop the reaction from taking place, and as you can see, they've all gone dull again for the most part. Now these pennies were the ones that were not rinsed with water, and the reaction continued to take place, and as you can see, as it oxidizes, the pennies turn green with the appearance of the verdigris on them. You can also see the green that's left over on the paper towels from some of the pennies, and that's how the Statue of Liberty is made out of copper, and that's why it looks green.
Eventually.
So the copper that coats the nail and screw comes from the pennies. However, it exists in a salt and vinegar solution as positively charged copper ions as opposed to neutral copper metal. Nails and screws are made of steel alloy, primarily composed of iron. The salt and vinegar solution dissolves some of the iron and it oxidizes on the surface of the nail, leaving a negative charge on the surface of the nail, which opposite charges attract, but the copper ions are more strongly affected to the nail than the ions. So a copper coating forms on a nail. And at the same time, the reactions involving the hydrogen ions from the acid and metal oxides produces some hydrogen gas, which bubbles up from the site of the reaction, the surface of the nail or the screw.